Hi, I'm Phil Constantine with Travels with Phil. And yes, John Wayne was murdered. Wait. Back the truck up. All right. John Wayne was murdered? Well, this is a story I've told several times in the past, and according to my in-laws, John Wayne was murdered. And my former in-laws, they've all passed away. In fact, it's been many, many years since any of the people who were involved, any of the principals that were involved in this story have been around. But I came across something yesterday that reminded me of it, so I thought I'd pass along this story. My in-laws, and I've been divorced and out of that family for a long time, but they're still in-laws. They did all kinds of stuff, and my former father-in-law did a lot of construction work, helped me got jobs, a pretty good guy. And but him and his brothers were all promoters of one sort or another. And so they promoted all kinds of ideas and projects, some of them good, some of them not so good, some of them just strictly speculation, some of them based on hardcore facts and such. Well, one of them was in business with John Wayne, the actor. Yes, the Duke, the big Western and otherwise action hero star. And it turns out John Wayne was a bit of a get-rich-quick scheme kind of guy. And he, not all the time, but he often tried to get these things to, make a lot more money than he already had. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Well, one of my father-in-law's brothers, I don't know how he met John Wayne, but somehow or another they came in contact, and he explained to the Duke his idea for a project. What the project was to find some chemical or other process that would get rid of used tires. Now, for those of you who've ever seen The Simpsons, one of the standing features in that TV show is a pile of old abandoned tires that are on fire. Basically, there's not a whole lot you can do with old used tires because of the vulcanization process, the petroleum, which puts it into something that doesn't just completely fall apart the first time you go across on it, makes that rubber pretty well, or whatever the product is, makes it pretty well unusable for just about anything else. Now, you can chain them together and make artificial reefs. You can chop them up and put them in roadways. The problem with chopping them up and putting them into like playgrounds to make them softer is that most of them nowadays have steel belts in it, so they get pokey for kids who are rolling around on things. But there's nothing really that you can do so far with old tires. And so I guess, uncle-in-law convinced John Wayne that they could come up with a process. Him and the guys that they would hire, the chemists, etc., that they would hire, would be able to come up with some sort of process that would be able to change tires back into petroleum or into some other useful product, and that would rid the countryside and the world of a blight and help everybody else out the other way, because there's a lot of oil tied up in tires. All right, so, well, they didn't want to spend their own money. The whole point was to get rich quick, not to invest your money quick. So as the story goes, and this was a story that was told to me by multiple members of my former in-laws, including some of the people that were sort of involved in it, was that through a long series of events, they got in contact with some very rich folks from Greece. Now, these folks had lots of money, sort of disposable money, but these are the kind of folks that didn't like having their money disposed of without getting a lot more money back for it. And there was folks that said, while they may have many legitimate businesses, they also had businesses that weren't quite so legitimate. So they explained that, yeah, sure, we'll fund this project for you, but we better get some results. Okay, well, all right, you're going to get results. Well, as the process kept going on and on and on, it never really quite seemed to work out. Now, they tried all kinds of stuff to to get rid of the tire or deassemble them, the tire processes. And even DMSO, and for those of you who are around during the 80s, DMSO was being sold as something that would cure everything, and it was a solvent, an industrial solvent. But that's another story. But in any case, after years and years and years of trying and spending the Greek people's money, they were never able to quite do it. Not quite. They were never able to do it at all. I mean, they got some processes to work, but nothing that really wouldn't pollute the environment even worse and make nothing better. So things just weren't working out. Well, eventually, one of the uncle-in-law, my uncle-in-law, died of an unusual form of stomach cancer. And as they were going through his books, they found an interesting a little note fell out of his one of his books. And let me backtrack here just a little bit. John Wayne gave his eulogy, and it's my understanding that John Wayne almost never gave eulogies. So that's how close they were. So when they were going through the uncle-in-law's books, this letter fell out, and it was addressed to a family member, and it says, "If I die of some strange, unusual reason, let me tell you that I was murdered." And basically what he said is the representatives of the Greeks who had, fronted the operation had told him, "You get something produced for us or you're not going to be around." And not much longer than that, he developed stomach cancer. Now here's the odd thing. John Wayne also developed stomach cancer. Now, John Wayne had been exposed to all kinds of radiation out in the desert when they were filming the movie Genghis Khan. In fact, lots of folks who were out there on the scene of that movie also developed various kinds of cancers and issues. And what happened was, this was out by St. George, Utah. It wasn't too far from one of the spots where they had done nuclear testing, and it was downwind, and the radiation and the fallout, etc., may have made it down into the sands out there, and lots of people were exposed to it. So a lot of people felt that was the way, or the reason why John Wayne died, was because of that exposure. Could be. I'm not a doctor, and I was never involved in any of this story. I was never. In fact, I hadn't even. John Wayne was dead long before I even got into the family. Let's put it that way. But John Wayne died of the same kind of cancer, at least according to my in-laws. And so it was their theory that the muscle men for the Greek organization, from whom they had borrowed their money, decided that, well, okay, you didn't live up to what you said you were going to do, never made a single penny of money for us, spent lots and lots and lots of our money always promising that you're going to deliver an amazing product, and nothing was ever delivered. So we told you if you didn't do something, we were going to take it out on you. And so according to the in-laws, they think that these folks somehow managed to implant radiation in their food, in their material, in their office, I don't know where it was they supposedly implanted it. Well, now this is where I get involved in the story. A different brother took over the operations and tried to convince the Greeks that he might be able to make a go of it. It didn't work for him, and then finally my father-in-law says, "Well, look, I tell you what, I'll try and do some stuff here. You don't have to pay me a penny, and I'll see if I can get something going here." And he says, and if it doesn't work out for me, just let me have the furniture and some of the stuff around the office. You haven't really lost much. And they said, okay. And so my former father-in-law worked at it for a couple of months, and then finally the people who were in charge of it now said, "Nah, never mind. We're just going to get rid of it all, and we're done with it, and whatever." So for a while, some of my living room furniture used to be John Wayne's office furniture. Had a couple of chairs and a really nice table, and it all used to be John Wayne's. And so when this story popped up about, well, maybe they had implanted radiation to get back at John Wayne and the former uncle-in-law, that they might have put it in the furniture. And I got to think, well, at that point, I don't know if I want this furniture around my house, because you hear about the Russians and polonium and stuff like that. So I do not personally know if John Wayne was murdered, but I do know that my in-laws have always felt that the death of their relative and the death of John Wayne, which happened not too far apart, relatively speaking, both had the same kind of cancer, at least according to the in-laws. I can't verify any of this, but according to them, there was extremely sketchy circumstances involving both of their deaths, and this note popped up after he had died, basically saying, "I've been killed, and this is why." So that's why my in-laws were convinced that John Wayne was murdered.
And I might add that my uncle-in-law was never out where the movie The Conqueror was made. Now, normally I don't do this kind of movie or this kind of video. Normally it's about travel and more humorous subject. But I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. You can press the button over here on the right-hand side. Thank you very much for viewing this different story.